Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, other members of the Senate, I rise today in support of this order, an order grounded in law. This order, grounded in law, justified by the magnitude of the national emergency we experienced, and necessary to ensure that Jamaica continues to recover safely and effectively from the severe impact of Hurricane Melissa. Mr. President, this is not a waiver of fiscal responsibility. It is fiscal responsibility guided by compassion. It is a lawful mechanism that exists precisely so that a government can respond to extraordinary circumstances with the speed and flexibility required to protect its people. When the entire island was declared a disaster area on October 28, 2025, that declaration triggered the conditions outlined in Section 48C of the Act. The Planning Institute of Jamaica completed its detailed assessment, and the Independent Fiscal Commissioner confirmed that the fiscal impact exceeded the legally defined threshold. Under those circumstances, the government is empowered to temporarily suspend selected fiscal targets so that our systems, especially health, are not paralyzed at the moment they are most needed. Hurricane Melissa inflicted profound damage on hospitals, health centers, water systems, and community infrastructure. The health sector required urgent reinforcement to protect lives, reduce disease risks, and restore critical services. Under the leadership of Dr. the Honorable Christopher Tufton, the Ministry of Wellness mounted a coordinated, timely, and evidence-based national response. This was not accidental. It was governance in action. One of the clearest examples was a field hospital established in Sablemar with the support of the government of Barbados. Prior to this, we had the Spanish field hospital that was set up in Falmouth, which I had the pleasure of touring. But the facility set up by the government of Barbados became an immediate bridge in service delivery, providing emergency care, maternity, and delivery services, surgical capability, high dependency unit support, diagnostics, pharmacy services for a parish whose main hospital had suffered major damage. It preserved care at a time when interruption would have been catastrophic. Mr. President, it was within this wider national response that I saw firsthand the extraordinary courage of our healthcare workers. As I supported the recovery of the operating theater services. My role, modest as it may have been, placed me directly in the heart of devastation. I stepped into theaters where water stained the walls, where essential equipment sat silent, where the pulse of life-saving activity had been interrupted by the storm. For a moment, the stillness felt heavy. But then something remarkable happened. The nurses whose homes were flooded, the technicians who lost their personal belongings, the porters who had walked through the debris simply to report for duty, they stood beside me, those damaged theaters, not with despair, but with determination. Their courage lit those rooms brighter than any surgical lamp could. There are moments when the scale of damage felt overwhelming. As someone trained in neurological surgery and deeply familiar with theater operations, I assisted with assessing the damage, evaluating safety, checking equipment integrity, and determining the readiness for reactivation. These assessments were not merely technical. They were emotional, urgent, and deeply human, because every repaired bed and every restored machine brought us one step closer to saving lives again. Operating theaters are not simply rooms. They are sanctuaries. They are the spaces where a mother prays as her child is wheeled inside, where fathers pace the hallways with trembling hands, where surgeons fight for every heartbeat. Restoring these theaters is not just infrastructure work. It is restoring hope and preserving the capacity of our nation to save its people. And here lies the political clarity, Mr. President. Without the flexibility provided through this fiscal suspension, our response would have been smaller and severely constrained. Rigid fiscal rules cannot repair a theater roof. They cannot dry soaked equipment. They cannot establish sterilization capacity washed out overnight. This government chose action instead of paralysis. We chose responsiveness over rigidity. We chose the health and safety of the Jamaican people over the illusion of inflexibility. Because of that choice, theaters are reopening, services are resuming, and lives are being saved. This national recovery expanded across all areas of public health. After the hurricane, Jamaica experienced an increase in leptospirosis cases, including deaths. And though it is not unlikely, it is not something we want to have. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has boosted surveillance, public education, and case management aimed at reducing negative outcomes. Dengue and influenza, which often rise sharply after major weather events, remain below seasonal thresholds due to the strong vector control efforts and consistent monitoring. Public health teams deployed island-wide conducted thousands of water quality assessments, treated hundreds of communities for mosquito breeding sites, fogged high-risk areas, distributed drum covers and repellents, and restored potable water in collaboration with the MV Dawn. This is a humanitarian vessel that goes around to assist. This level of emergency mobilization requires fiscal agility, and it is this order that empowers such responsiveness. Continuity of medication access was preserved through the National Health Fund, whose mobile units reached cut-off communities and filled thousands of prescriptions. Drug-served pharmacies maintained high operational capacity despite widespread disruption. These actions protected vulnerable Jamaicans managing chronic illnesses, preventing dangerous interruptions in care. For the first time in a national disaster, mental health was placed at the center of recovery. With support from PAHO and leadership from the ministry, psychological first aid, trauma support, and structured mental health interventions were delivered to affected families and exhausted healthcare workers. This reflects a maturing health system, one that understands that healing must address both visible wounds and the unseen emotional scars left behind. We cannot overlook the sacrifices of our healthcare workers. More than 2,000 of them were personally affected by the hurricane, losing homes, belongings, and access to utilities. Yet they continue to survive. The government appreciates their commitment. The government has been providing food packages, temporary housing support, document replacement services, psychosocial care, and financial guidance. We must also express Jamaica's profound appreciation of our international partners and donors. Spain, Barbados, PAHO, UNICEF, Food for the Poor, and many others acted swiftly and generously. And recently China, yes. Their solidarity strengthened our response, accelerated recovery, and reaffirmed that Jamaica is never alone in times of trial. Mr. President, the order ensures that Jamaica is not constrained by rigid fiscal rules at this time, where national recovery demands flexibility. It allows the government to meet urgent needs, restore critical services, build damaged facilities, protect the population from health threats, and continue reconstruction without compromising safety or well-being. This is not fiscal loosening. It is fiscal responsibility in its most humane form. It is the state fulfilling its duty of care. I am proud of the leadership of Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the Minister of Health and Wellness, Christopher Tupton. I am proud of the healthcare workers who stood and is still